Hello all, this is Dr. Dave Maslach talking to you about reciprocity.com. The E is written with a 3, and in this particular video, I'm going to talk to you about why academics write so badly. So if you don't know me, I'm an associate professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship, and I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can. There were so many people that helped me out that I wanted to pay the favor forward and help you out as much as I possibly can. So I created this sort of sharing economy editing website. That's what reciprocity.com is. You get credits on it, and you can get help with your writing by doing that. And then I'm also doing this YouTube channel, and then I've got this rather big blog that we've been working out. I've hired some people to help out with the blog as well, so check that out, blog.reciprocity.com. All right, so why do academics write so badly? And most people actually assume that or believe that academic writing is really boring and academic writers don't know how to write. But I don't think that this is true at all. I think most academics are actually really amazing in terms of how they write. And some of the best writers in the world are academic writers. They have to in order to produce work and research that is riveting so other people read it, right? So what we tend to do and what we try to emphasize, and the reason is that it's vetted before it goes into the marketplace, right? So academic writers have to write up a document and then they send it off to multiple reviewers. The multiple reviewers get the feedback on that particular thing, then they get more information and what they can do and improve with the writing, and then it goes back and forth. So depending on the journal, particularly if it's a really good journal that many people read and emphasizes that sort of component of it, then the writing is going to be riveting. It's going to be very interesting, and there is going to be a lot of technical details. But the best articles, the best research articles, don't have as much technical details as you'd imagine. They're more about storytelling, and then the technical details come from that, right? And so that's why everybody pays attention to the technical details, because of the sort of storytelling component behind it. So if you know how to do this well, then the writing is absolutely riveting. But the funny thing is, I asked the reciprocity audience, the YouTube audience, which tends to be mostly PhDs, academics, researchers, those kind of folks, students, 2 questions. And the sample was a decent size, about 50 individuals. And I said, do you believe that you are a good academic writer? And 54% of the people said no. So they personally believe that they're not good at academic writing. And then I also asked the question, do you believe that others are better at writing, academic writing, than you? So 82% of the people said yes. So most people are actually believing that other people are better writers than them in this particular career. So what is going on here? It's kind of a curious thing, right? So actually academic writing is difficult and it's challenging, but most people think that everybody else is better at it than they are. And you actually read some of the people that are really doubtful with themselves, that their writing is actually really good. So what is actually going on here? There's a lot of different processes that I want to talk about in terms of why academics actually write so badly, even though I don't believe that they do. But there's things that we forget about, right? In terms of discounting how we all write and what we're thinking about, right? So people struggle with some things that don't come naturally with them. And then if that happens, they're more likely to discount that skill, right? So if you struggle with something, you're going to say, well, I'm not really good at that. But that might not necessarily be true, right? So you might have actually worked on that particular thing, and you just put in all the effort in that, but then you end up discounting it because it just doesn't come naturally to you. So you have to think about that, right? So just because it doesn't come naturally to you, which is most people, this is a struggle, right? There's different things that we're doing behind the scenes that we struggle with, and so you have to just acknowledge that it's more of a learning process and a skill development process that doesn't take, it doesn't take a year, it doesn't take 5 years, it probably takes 20 years by the time you actually get good at it. And you have to really realize that it is a skill development thing. And the reason why I say it's going to take you 20 years versus a year, you have to think about how long it actually takes a youngster to learn how to read and write themselves, right? To get to the basic knowledge of reading and writing, you're probably looking at 5-6 years of work before you actually just get kind of good enough that you can read a book by yourself and nobody else is there. Now, I know that there's fluctuations in that in terms of some people get better and some people get worse. But most people, it's probably about 5 to 6 years by the time you're in like 5th and 6th grade, by the time you can read fluently, a novel or something like that, right? So you can just imagine it takes a long time. And so expect that when you're doing the academic writing thing. It just takes a lot of time, right? You also forget that there is, and the second thing I want to point out is you forget that there's a lot of natural selection processes that are occurring around you, right? So a really interesting researcher that I look very, very highly upon is Jirka Denrell, and he's at Warwick University, and he's done some really cool things in terms of understanding selection processes and what it actually means in terms of selection processes with the things around you. And really what's going on is that the things we observe in reality have got there because there has been all of these selection processes. So what do I mean by that? So things where people don't do that good in, or sort of things around us that people naturally don't do very good in, then we're good. I don't do very well in. I don't do good English either. So don't do very well in, they will select out and they won't do that thing in the future, right? So as soon as you start feeling that this is too tough, you're going to select out of that thing and never do that thing in the future. So the people around you that you see that are top in their game in any particular field, in any particular thing, the reason they're there is because they have some sort of skill component, right? So that they are good enough. But, mostly it's because that they've stuck with that particular thing for a long time. And then you're comparing against those individuals that are fundamentally better than you because of this process that has evolved over a long time. And so you yourself, you feel that that you're not as qualified, you're not as good enough, but you just haven't had the experience, development to get to that particular place where you are doing really good with your work and your research and your writing, right? So don't forget that. That's an important thing. I think too that so the writing that we do and the things that we do is different than a lot of stuff in terms of the writing that we do in sort of other areas, right? So for journalism, a lot of journalism is kind of just reporting facts of things that are going on around you, and that's a really important thing, that they report facts of the things that are going on around you. But with in terms of science and building and becoming a good academic, you're also creating new ideas. So there is this component of not only writing and communicating these ideas, but you're also developing these ideas that nobody else has thought about. And so that is really tough. That's the harder part of this particular process, is coming up with something new, novel, different, interesting that nobody else has done, because lots of people have thought about a lot of different things. And so it's a challenge for all of us where we are, we come up with this idea, but then we have to sort of communicate. We have to do a lot of what is called sense making. This is Carl Weick. I've talked about him a few times. And there's a group of social psychologists that talk about sense making in terms of, how do we figure out this world around us, and how would we communicate not only sense making but sense giving to other people, the language and things like that we are trying to do, right? So we have this sort of object in our mind, this construct in our mind, and we have to sort of talk about it and communicate to other people what it is all about. And it's really, really difficult to do that. Most of us struggle in terms of, imagine you have to sit there and not only, tell somebody, so tell, a 3-year-old what is what is a nuclear reactor, but you have to write that down and you have to sort of communicate that such that like a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old can understand what a nuclear reactor is, because everybody else that hasn't studied this thing for 4 or 5 years is kind of at that level, right? They're trying to figure out what you're talking about. And so that is a real problem, and we all struggle with that. So don't worry about that when that happens to you. The other thing is that we tend to, as human beings, we tend to sort of see flaws in the things that we built. And it is easy to do that compared to when somebody else has built that particular thing, right? So you get a contractor into your house, or you have somebody come and build something for you, it looks amazing, right? You're always like, this is amazing. But when you go and build it yourself, you know all the different flaws, all the different problems you experience, then you're like, oh, that's the moment where I did this and it didn't work out and I had to take this apart. So last night I was putting together, it's the 2012 or 2020 pandemic that's going on, COVID-19 pandemic that's going on right now. So we bought a little, above ground pool, and I was trying to put it together. And it took me like 4 times to put this kind of ladder together. I did to put it, I had the instructions. It looked like it was easy. I assembled things, and then it was like, nope, that's not how it does. So I had to take it all apart, and then I put it back together. Anyways, it was just a heck of a lot more difficult than when somebody else does that. And I knew what all the flaws are, but nobody else sees that, right? So I know what they are, but nobody else does. So you're going to pay attention to that yourself and realize that, oh man, it's not so good there. It doesn't flow so good. But other people are just like, meh, it's okay. So don't worry about that when that happens to you. The other thing is that we tend to follow kind of a natural learning curve with writing or any skill development that we have. And so what does that mean? You see improvements over time that are pretty incremental. It doesn't happen very rapidly unless you have a lot of deliberate learning or deliberate coaching where somebody is really nailing on the things that you're, that you're not doing good at. But even then, it's going to seem like it's going slow, right? So if you're, you have an expert swim coach, for example, and somebody's trying to work with you at swimming, it's still going to seem really slow in terms of your skill development because you're doing things all for the first time and you're just not getting that. And that never ends with writing. It always is improving. You're always getting better over time. And there's not really a measuring stick that you're not that you're hitting, and you're it's just like swimming, right? If you get swimming or cycling or running, it never gets easier. Trust me, it never gets easier to do any of these exercises. You just get faster at it, right? You just your speed just goes quicker. Same with writing. It never gets easier. It never feels like it's. So I feel I struggle with it the same way that I struggled, in 5th grade at this moment, and it's still difficult. But I'm probably better at this moment in terms of than when I was working when I was in 5th grade. The other thing that we failed to do, and this is the last thing I'm going to talk about, is we often fail to stop and think and reflect on the things that we've done and just admire the things that we have done around us, right? It takes a lot of effort and a lot of work to get there, right? It's like anything, it just takes a lot of skill development. It's really, really challenging. And so every once in a while, if you just stop and think and appreciate everything that you've done at this moment to get you to where you are. So just look back and sort of think about all the things that you've accomplished in the last year, the last 5 years, and just realize it's a lot of stuff. And once you start breaking it down, and I mean breaking it down in terms of thinking about things, right? Like I did this that month, and then I did this, and then I did this, and you realize it's a lot of stuff that you have learned, you've developed over the time. And so just appreciate that. That's going to make you feel like you're much better off than what you were, even 5 years ago. And that does really help for all of us. And you start thinking about, I actually know something at this moment. So, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. Do subscribe to the YouTube channel. So what I tried to do in this video is kind of give you an idea of why we all think that, academics write so poorly and, trying to take a deep dive in terms of where to go with this. So, again, give me a thumbs up. Do subscribe to the YouTube channel. Take care and have a wonderful day. Bye.